us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Follow the leader.
Oh my God.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
White diamonds, 2 a.m. she wildin'. She sick, got they stomach in her comments. What school you went to? Gardena, Compton, Westchester, King, True, did we function? Lil, but that dog give me that's on pup. All my kids, I sock you up. Have you ever took a fade and ran 3 more back to back? Oh, you haven't? Then shut the f up and keep it rap. I'm from the land. Don't say you hate LA when you don't travel
listening
past
to the Black Pack here at KBLA Talk 1580. I'm your host, Adrianne Shropshire. Happy New Year once again to everyone. Andy, I am so glad that Kendrick dropped this album because it is just, not only is it just a fantastic project, but it is also, it is what the time calls for, and there's literally everything on that album. Like I'm speechless maybe, but it's like everything you want, like that, right? Is my jam.
Somebody who I feel that I'm victim to listening practices of music in today's era. Mm-hmm. In other words, I feel like I have a short-term memory span. Like,
okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So you have to keep me captivated for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. And this is probably one of the last albums I can honestly say, probably within the past 10 years or so, that I've actually, after one listen, I'll go back and listen and listen and listen. Nowadays, music, I'll probably listen to it once.
Yeah.
And, I'll pick out maybe 3 or 4 or 5 songs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm done listening to the album. So shout out to Kendrick. We looking forward to the Super Bowl. I don't know how it's going to go down now with everything that went down for New Year's, which is quite interesting. But Kendrick, we definitely looking forward to that performance.
I'm looking forward too. And then I'm hopeful that these rumors about a double album are true. And then we're going to get something else coming out of the Super Bowl. So, because if, Beyonce's promoting stuff coming out of her, little Christmas halftime Beyonce Bowl, then hopefully Kendrick is too. Okay. So getting back into the politics of it all, because just like that, Congress is already back in session. And so folks may have seen today they're swearing in of members of Congress, including a record number of members of the Congressional Black Caucus that includes Senator Lisa Blunt Rochester of Delaware and Angela Brooks of Maryland, who, as we have said many times, are making history as the only 2 black women to serve in the United States Senate at the same time. And they also had the opportunity to be sworn in by the vice president. So it was one of her final official acts. Vice President Harris swore in new and returning members of the Senate. And you certainly can catch the footage of her swearing in folks on C-SPAN. But here's a clip of the vice president sort of reassuring Senator Ruben Gallego's son when he was concerned about the fact that she had lost the election.
It's so much. It's real. You did one already?
I'm sorry you did it.
Oh, you know what, sweetheart? But you know what? Don't you worry about it, because there's still so much work to do. So it's not that we've been beaten, we're not defeated, right? You know that word defeated means? Are we defeated? Nope, we're not defeated, right? That's right, baby. That's right. Okay, you ready? Yeah?
So that was, one is the ongoing sort of caretaking that the vice president is having to do with folks around the loss. So if it wasn't totally clear, Ruben Gallego's son said, "I'm sorry you lost," and she said, there's so much work to do that we shouldn't see it as a loss, that we're not defeated. And so I think that that's a little bit of what I was saying, Andy. I think at the top of the show was like, there's a lot to do, and this conversation is not over, and we will continue to push forward. But we had also today, in fact, over in the House on the other side of the Capitol, Republicans reelected their speaker. So there is a speaker, and it is not a new speaker, but the same old speaker, Mike Johnson from Louisiana. And while it was less dramatic in terms of the last time he was elected, it still was not uneventful. Right, so it was not clear. He did not win, or it did not appear he was going to win on the first ballot. And in the end, he ended up getting what he needed, 218 votes, by convincing a couple of Republicans who were not voting for him that they should. So he got 218 votes to Hakeem Jeffries' 215 votes. And so what that number should tell us is just how razor thin the margin is for Republicans to be able to do anything. It is not unlike what we just saw in the last Congress. But Democrats, through all of their support behind House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, there was not a single defection in terms of the support that he received. During his remarks on the floor, Congressman Jeffries explained that his caucus, is willing to work with anyone that'll put American families first and workers first, but he drew a line. So let's hear that, Andy.
We will push back against far-right extremism whenever necessary. So let me be clear, Social Security and Medicare are not entitlement programs. They are earned benefits. Hard-working American taxpayers pay in to Social Security and Medicare every day, every week, every month, every year throughout their entire adult life. They've earned those benefits, worked hard for those benefits, and deserve those benefits. So as Democrats, our promise to the American people is that we will fight hard to make sure that no one in this town takes away Social Security or Medicare from the American people. Not now, not ever, no means never.
So, I think what the congressman was saying very clearly and very specifically is that we'll work with you, but there's a line, and that there are some things that you won't do, right? And here's what you're not going to do. You're not going to take away Social Security. You're not going to take away Medicare and Medicaid. You're not going to take away nutrition programs for children. And so I think that, he sort of made very clear that Democrats are prepared to fight. And another important moment that stood out, speaking of Democrats being prepared to fight during the vote for Speaker, was when Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, who represents the U.S. Virgin Islands, asked why the delegates from the U.S. territories and D.C. weren't allowed to cast their vote. Andy, let's hear that.
I note that the names of the representatives from the Americas, Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and the District of Columbia were not called, representing collectively 4 million Americans. Speaker, collectively the largest per capita of veterans in this country.
Does the gentlelady have a parliamentary inquiry?
I asked why they were not called. Have some respect. It's not going to take.
Gentlelady is recognized.
I asked why they were not called from the parliamentarian, please.
So they tried to silence her. She's asking a legitimate question. We were elected to represent folks in the territories. Why are we not allowed to vote on Speaker? They cut her mic, and she wouldn't be silenced. So she continued to push to call out the body for a two-tiered system of representation. She said, "I have a voice, and I'll be heard." Let's hear the last bit, Andy, of her speech.
body and this nation has a territories and a colonies problem. What was supposed to be temporary has now effectively become permanent. We must do something about this problem so that these 4 million... But I have a voice.
When you hear her voice go away is because they're cutting her mic. And she's essentially saying, we represent American citizens. And folks know that there's always been a call for statehood. For some of the territories, for Puerto Rico in particular. And when she called out the names of those who are being silenced, the representatives of the territories that are being silenced, we should remember that those are places where there are people of color. And they are represented in many cases by people of color, and those, including D.C., right, including the District of Columbia. And those representatives are not allowed to vote for a speaker. And she rightly called that out. So we saw a lot of folks standing up today saying that the fight is not over. We are continuing to fight, and then demonstrating that in a way that's really, really important, I think, to make sure that people stay in this fight as we go forward. So when we come forward, we're actually going to be joined by our friend, lawyer Madiba Denny, the deputy editor and senior contributor of the digital publication Balls and Strikes, and author of The Originalism Trap, How Extremists Stole the Constitution and How We the People Can Take It Back, because there's another fight that continues to be critical that we need to make sure that we understand, and that is the ongoing attacks on the 14th Amendment. So we'll have that conversation with Madiba Denny when we come forward. You're listening to the Black Pack on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580. Starting Monday, January 6th, KBLA Talk 1580 has a new midday lineup.
I'm excited.
Are you ready for Tavis Smiley, Dr. Cornel West, Jesse Jackson Jr., D.L. Hughley, and E. Quarterly Corte back-to-back?
Oh, my God.
Are you really ready for all this smoke?
I'm ready, brother.
Yes, we still have Dominique DePrima in the mornings and Zoe Williams in the evenings, but middays just got lit on KBLA Talk 1580.
We on fire.
All across America, people are talking about our new midday lineup. Starting Monday, January 6th, our KBLA 1580 app downloads are on fire because everybody's going to be tuning in.
Yes, I love you guys. You are the bomb.
Now would be a good time to hit up SMB at KBLA1580.com if you want folks to hear about your business or brand. That's SMB at KBLA1580.com. It's going up in 2025 on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's going up.
That's what I want.
If you need up to $3,000, go to WeFixMoney.com. WeFixMoney.com is the name you can trust. It's free to use, available 24/7, and you are never required to accept any loan offer. Some lenders offer same-day funding. If you need up to $3,000, type WeFixMoney.com directly into your browser. WeFixMoney.com has been helping customers for 15 years and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. So, if you need cash for credit card bills, car repairs, child care, or anything else, go to WeFixMoney.com. Make sure you type WeFixMoney.com directly in your browser. Go to the company you trust, WeFixMoney.com. Just fill in the information and get an answer in minutes at WeFixMoney.com. For up to $3,000, go to WeFixMoney.com. That's WeFixMoney.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the Black Pack, and we are joined in this hour by Madiba Denny, who Madiba, thank you for joining us once again. I have, been looking forward to talking to you because one of the things that we have heard in the last, weeks, time literally has no meaning right now, is this sort of return to a focus by Trump and those within the Republican Party, this sort of return to focus, maybe not a return, I think they never left it, but at least an increased rhetoric around the 14th Amendment, and obviously the thing that they talk about and that gets talked about most is this idea of citizenship and birthright citizenship and eliminating it, right? And in some ways, sometimes I think Trump says things like, he's just gonna eliminate the 14th Amendment as if that were a thing that he could, sort of unilaterally do, right, on his own. Like it's an executive order, right, to get rid of a constitutional amendment. But I think that this is the reason why I want to talk to you, because I think you're so good at helping to kind of break down what the 14th Amendment is, how it is being used in this moment to sort of erode rights already, right, without this idea of, even without the idea, I guess I should say, of taking away birthright citizenship. It's already being used. And so there's these kind of core pieces to the amendment, birthright citizenship, obviously, due process, and equal protection, among other things, right? A couple of other things that feel really important. And so when we talk about the 14th Amendment, just to step back a little bit, what is the challenge, right, to our democracy when we hear people talk about eliminating the 14th Amendment? And obviously we know that this is one of the Reconstruction amendments, but what is the challenge or the problem for our democracy when we talk about eliminating an amendment, a constitutional amendment that is so central to citizens having secured rights?
Right. I think that's a great question, because I find it horrifying. The 14th Amendment is literally the part of the Constitution that, for the first time, part of the Constitution before, but the 14th Amendment made that possible. And so for people to be talking about undercutting parts of the 14th Amendment, or even overwriting them as if they weren't part of the Constitution at all, which is preposterous, it's really scary as to, how brazen they are and how willing they are to really just cut people of color out of the democratic process, just cut them out of the political community. And it really sort of means, I think, that anything really is on the table. If you're saying let's get rid of the 14th Amendment, you are saying that no one is safe, basically.
Right. And that's, I think, the thing. So we know that the equal protection clause is, and you'll tell me if I'm getting this right? That is what's being used when we think about the decisions that the Supreme Court has made recently. And we know that in the, in the recent case, right, with the U.S. versus Scrimeti, I think I'm saying that right. This was also this was about trans rights, or presumably, right, about trans rights. I think that equal protection was used in that way too. So when we think about equal protection, what are we talking about in terms of the context within the Constitution? What did that help to preserve, that part of the 14th Amendment?
Yeah. So prior to the 14th Amendment, there were no constitutional protections about making sure that people are treated equally under law, that we do not have laws that are attacking some parts of the population, or that people are not receiving the benefits of a given law, that they're just sort of like not applying it to a group of people. So the Equal Protection Clause was supposed to remedy that. And we saw a really glaring attack on the Equal Protection Clause just before the year's end. There was oral argument a couple weeks ago in U.S. versus Scrimeti. So that case is a trans rights case because Tennessee, it was Tennessee passed a law that said that trans kids aren't allowed to get puberty blockers. Or like access to hormone therapy. Mind you, other kids can.
Right.
If they want it, they are free to have it. But the statute specifically says, if they want this to live in a way that's inconsistent with their sex. So this should like raise people's eyebrows a little bit, and for multiple different ways. Because one is like, well, what do you think it means to be consistent with sex? Like, you are prescribing a way that people of various sexes have to live. So that's like already the sort of first problematic part, because we're talking about like state enforcement of their idea of what like a woman or like what a man should be like. So that's a concern already. And then the other sort of problem is that it's very clearly treating a group of people unequally, just pretty much facially, just like right there on the face of the law. They're saying, if a cisgender boy wants testosterone because he wants to put some bass in his voice, like he wants to lower the pitch of his voice, he can do that. But if a trans boy, so a person who is assigned female at birth, if they want to get testosterone for the same reason too, if they think I'm uncomfortable with the sound of my voice, I would like it to be deeper, I would like to get testosterone, that child gets told no because of their sex. So that is sort of the most sort of clear-cut sex discrimination as you could have. So that's, again, that's another equal protection violation right there.
Well, I want to just maybe focus on the a little bit on the thing that you said, which is, and this is the thing where I feel like we often get caught up in noise around issues, but particularly around Supreme Court decisions, where this is fundamentally about if you can discriminate against one group of people, then you create a slippery slope to discriminating against any group of people that you choose to, right? I mean, that's what it feels like is important here in terms of this idea of equal protection. People are either protected from discrimination or they are not. It seems to be.
There's not a gray area there.
Right.
It's pretty simple. People receive the same protections under law or they don't. People can be singled out under law or they cannot. And we want to live in the world where a group of people can't just be singled out by law. Like, this is like a very sort of ominous sign. But that's precisely what this statute does. It says, if a minor is trying to live in a way that's inconsistent with their sex, they can't have this. So it singles out trans kids, which is frightening for trans kids, but really, as you said, like for anybody, because anybody could be made the subject of a law in that way. And this was an argument that didn't get much traction in front of the Supreme Court. Surprise, surprise. Mm-hmm. But it was at least briefly floated the idea of, even without getting into how this is clearly sex discrimination, you are attacking trans kids. It's like because they are trans kids, right. And that is invidious discrimination that the Equal Protection Clause should protect against, because that's, again, transparently unequal treatment. But so the court was, let's say, hesitant to embrace that line of reasoning. But yeah, it's
very diplomatic of you.
But it definitely is, I think, ominous, because if it would be effectively green-lighting targeted discrimination.
Yes. And that is again, when I follow Tabitha Brown on social media, and she always says, "Stay focused, stay focused.
Mm-hmm.
Let's stay focused," because it feels like that is the thing that we really need to make sure that we're staying focused on. Because I think that it is. I mean, equal protection obviously is what helped to bring about a whole host of rights that we thought were, pretty solid, like they couldn't be taken away, right? Like, mm-hmm. like abortion rights, right? That, I think we maybe we're taking for granted. And I think that when we think of, or voting rights for that matter, right? And so I think when we get to start talking about slippery slopes, right, we can sort of see one domino and then the next and then the next, because in some ways we have lost sight, right, of the bigger picture, and that is that what you just said, right, which is that it's we can't just indiscriminately target groups of people for discrimination, because that sort of blows up the entire experiment. So I know this is a complicated conversation, and I want to pull apart some more of the pieces when we come forward with Madiba Denny helping us understand the 14th Amendment and how it is being attacked right now, and what that means for our democracy. So more when we come forward. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Donald Trump must appear for sentencing on January 10th in his hush money case. Found guilty of hiding payments to Stormy Daniels, Trump will not face incarceration due to partial immunity for actions taken while in office. Wall Street is closing higher after a volatile start to the new year. Tesla shares jumped nearly 7% as stocks rebounded in a broad rally to end the week. Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams is reflecting on a tough 2024 marked by his indictment, raids on AIDS homes, and resignations, including NYPD Chief Jeffrey Madry over misconduct allegations. And Mississippi Valley State University's Mean Green Marching Band is raising $350,000 for their trip to perform at President-elect Trump's inauguration. The band previously made history as the first HBCU to play at the Tournament of Roses parade and Nixon's inauguration. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Sunland, this is a stall on the 210 freeway. This is making your way westbound at Sunland Boulevard. 2 left lanes are blocked. Delays away from Latuna Canyon Road. Some good news in San Pedro. They got rid of the stalled big rig on westbound lanes of the Vincent Thomas Bridge before mid-span. Traffic's picking up quickly away from the 103. And into downtown Los Angeles, it's a crash, 110 northbound at 5th Street. Everything's out of lanes now to the right shoulder. Delays are loading up out of South LA, getting away from Exposition. And let's head out to Anaheim Hills, the 91 eastbound before Imperial Highway. Stalled out big rig in the 2 right lanes. They've issued a SIG alert. Delays off of the 57.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Rams and Chargers have a playoff spot locked up heading into the final regular season game on Sunday, but both teams still have an incentive to win. Both teams are also expected to rest key players. The Rams, at home against Seattle, can hold on to the number 3 seed in the NFC playoffs and secure a potential first-round bye. Their first-round game would also be at home if they beat Seattle. The Chargers are facing a road game in the wild-card round in the AFC, whether they win or lose at Las Vegas on Sunday. The incentive for the Chargers is a shorter trip if they beat the Raiders. A win gives them the number 5 seed and a wild-card game at Houston. A loss to the Raiders drops the Chargers to the number 6 seed and a wild-card game in frigid temperatures at Baltimore or Pittsburgh. Draw your own conclusions as to which is the better option for the Chargers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is for all the folks who appreciate follow-through. Here's a quick recap of the KBLA Talk 1580 2024 Climate Justice Campaign. More than 6.4 million Southern Californians viewed our climate justice billboards and bus shelters. Another 1.5 million people listened to and or downloaded our weekly conversations with African American climate experts. Our KBLA Climate Justice web portal had 2.8 million unique visitors. Thousands more attended our 7 climate justice community events. More than 9.3 million riders saw our climate care messaging on metro buses and trains. And 39 million Americans accessed our C-SPAN Climate Justice Symposium. All told, our 2024 Climate Justice Campaign exceeded 471 million total impressions. KBLA Talk 1580 thanks all of our 2024 Climate Justice partners: LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, Sierra Club, California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, LA City Council member Curran D. Price Jr., the California Wellness Foundation, MWD, AQMD, and the Port of Los Angeles. Caring about the climate, caring about the community, changing the conversation. We're KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you that we keep us safe. The Live Your Life organization mentors young women, helping them break negative mindsets and see beyond their surroundings. Through career exposure and hands-on training, they're encouraged to think big, stay focused, and make positive choices. Founded by Nikisha Mama Boo Smith, who transformed her life to become a community leader. Live Your Life is changing lives, but they need your help. They're raising funds to keep their new building open and expand their programs. Your donations will support food, clothes, hygiene products, and holiday giveaways. Visit liveyourlife32.com. That's LIVEYOLIFE32.com to help today. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
You're inside the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are joining the Black Pack and our friend Madiba Denny, author of The Originalism Trap and deputy editor of Balls and Strikes, as we are talking about the 14th Amendment, the ongoing assaults on the 14th Amendment, and particularly, the conversations that we see coming out of conservative right-wing folks around citizenship and ending birthright citizenship. But this also the sort of undermining of the 14th Amendment through decisions that the Supreme Court has made that we all know and have impacted us all over the last few years that are sort of based in around equal protection. So Madiba, we've seen the Roberts Court that, hopefully, we sort of find our way out of this dark moment in American history and can actually write and tell the actual true story and true history. And the Roberts Court will be seen appropriately the way that it should be seen in the context of American history. But they've sort of been low-key remaking the 14th Amendment, right, kind of in their own image.
Yeah.
And I know you've talked about, we've talked about this briefly before, but can you explain again for our listeners how the court's kind of right-wing supermajority's obsession with the ideal of originalism actually undermines the intent of the 14th Amendment?
Yeah. So originalism is the idea that the meaning of the Constitution is fixed in time. Originalists say that the Constitution, we have to interpret it today the same way that they imagine it would have been interpreted hundreds of years ago when it was first written down. And this obviously does not really work out well for the overwhelming majority of the country because most of us had to fight for our rights over time. Most of us won our rights. And originalism basically establishes like a presumption against the recognition of any rights that had to be fought for because it says if it wasn't there from the jump, we're suspicious of it. We don't really recognize it. And they also at the same time, because it's really sort of like to play fast and loose with it and use it for whatever conservative outcome you're looking for. Because they get a lot less serious, or a lot, messier with their understandings of history when it comes to those Reconstruction era amendments. When it comes to the amendments that were designed to eradicate racial inequality in this country, ones that were trying to build an actual functioning multiracial democracy, those suddenly they read much more narrowly. You gave an example just before the break. You mentioned issues with like the Equal Protection Clause and voting, and I think that's a particularly representative example because an idea that's been getting traction in the conservative legal movement is that the Voting Rights Act is itself unconstitutional. And the one of the reasons that they give to justify this is because parts of the Voting Rights Act are supposed to stop racial gerrymandering, right? Supposed to stop people like legislatures from drawing electoral districts in a way that diminishes the voting power of people of color. And so when there is a racial gerrymander, if a judge who is correctly applying the Voting Rights Act would say, that's a no-go, you need to redraw your district to give people of color their power back. And now we have these actors on the right wing saying, oh, that actually is a 14th Amendment violation because the 14th Amendment was supposed to stop the government from taking race into account, and you are making them take race into account. It is basically equating discriminating on the basis of race with remedying racial discrimination. And so they've been trying to pervert the 14th Amendment in this way to really sort of like undercut what its actual purpose was by just claiming that it was meant to do something different.
Right. And so, it makes me think, and this is maybe a little bit off the topic here, but like so should we be worried about Brown v. Board in this context?
So I have a theory.
Okay, thank you, please.
I think that much of the Supreme Court would be unwilling to be be the court that overrules Brown outright. I think that they would not want to actually say we are overruling Brown. They actually love to invoke the mantle of Brown when they're doing all manner of nonsense that contradicts what Brown actually is about. But they recognize that Brown is beloved and has like a, place of really high importance, basically the high watermark of Supreme Court decision making. So I think that they would be wary of explicitly overruling Brown. I do think, however, that they would dilute it without actually saying they're overruling it, but try to basically render what it says meaningless. I can definitely see the court doing that.
Which is a little bit of what they've done with the Voting Rights Act, right? Sort of chipping away at it piece by piece to the point where what you just said is now sort of perhaps a viable conversation about whether or not the Voting Rights Act violates in and of itself violates the Constitution. We sort of come to that point, I think, right? Like we certainly didn't start there, but the sort of erosion bit by bit, now puts us in a place where it is called into question.
Yeah, and I think erosion is a great way to phrase it, because it's really been a sort of gradual taking away of what the Reconstruction Amendments are supposed to mean. And instead they've, in its place, they've been lifting up this idea of originalism that however much rights people had then is what we have now. And like that's our actual high water mark, is whatever was already done. Right. Like people aren't allowed to, the nation isn't allowed to grow and learn and expand rights. It can only be in amber.
Right, and remedy past injustice.
Yeah, it takes issue with the idea of remedying past injustice, and instead says we need to preserve the past, even though what the Reconstruction Amendments were specifically supposed to do was upset that entire status quo. Right. But originalism demands that the status quo be preserved at all cost, or even if not the actual status quo, their imagined ahistorical version of it that they are telling the public was what the history really was.
Right. And it does. I mean, I think it's, we should not, I try not to be a conspiracy theorist, but it really does cause us to have to, make the connections between dots, right? And so when we hear people use the phrase "Make America Great Again," and then we connect that to the idea of originalism and the sort of use of originalism to make decisions that essentially do what you're describing, which is to say we have to go back in time and we can only look at the Constitution. The Constitution is only real if we are interpreting it from these moments in our past, right? Then it's like how these slogans that are apparently motivating to people, it becomes clear why they're motivating, right? If you believe that America was great in 1863. then it would make sense to you that all the laws, right, that have, or the amendments and laws that have happened since then should be reevaluated because they're not representative of 1863 United States of America. Okay, I want to talk with you when we come forward about things that can be done, right? How do citizens get engaged, right? What do we do to sort of shift these interpretations? How do we force, a different set of interpretations? And does that only have to happen in Washington, D.C.? So more when we come forward with Madiba Denny on this question of the 14th Amendment and how we wrestle it back from those who are trying to pervert it.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
So this new dose is, nope, that's not it. The price is nowhere to be found.
Mr. Green? Hi, it's all good. We've got this.
This is not just help from a Walgreens pharmacist.
Oh, new prescriptions. Cool. Let me check to see if these are the lowest cost options covered by your Medicare plan.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
This is someone supporting you every step of the way. Chat with a pharmacist today to find help saving. This is the human kind of help. Walgreens.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
A clue.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent.
Aha.
So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle. Tide Free and Gentle provides an excellent Tide clean, and it doesn't leave behind irritating residues like dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on your skin.
Case closed.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to The Black Pack. I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and I'm here with Madiba Dinny, author of The Originalism Trap and deputy editor of Balls and Strikes. So, Madiba, I'm this conversation about the 14th Amendment, about originalism, about equal protection, about the anti-DEI movement, right? Like all of these things make me very agitated. And I feel like this is because there is this, or the thing I said before, like Make America Great Again, like these things are all sort of connected. And I think it's important as we go into this next period of America, right? This next season of America for us to understand the ways in which the dots are connected. But I also think that it's important for us to try and understand how we as citizens, as everyday regular Americans, can help to influence this. And so I'm about to ask you to do something that is totally unfair, and that is sort of answer a couple of complicated questions that maybe don't have answers to them, in 10 minutes. So there is I think that it's often hard for people to understand when we talk about constitutional issues, when we talk about the courts in general, to understand what they can do to help shift the conversation, right? What they can do to help move folks. And certainly there are some actions I know that folks are taking. I think tomorrow there's a rally in DC for the 14th Amendment that is about a different part of the 14th Amendment, right? It's about disqualifying elected leaders who act against the Constitution, and so this is about Donald Trump and whether or not members of Congress should be rejecting his election because he's not in their perspective disqualified because of the fact that he led an insurrection against the U.S. Capitol. So there are people that are trying to do things, right? There's a rally that's happening tomorrow. But are there other ways that folks can be engaged, or ways in which folks can try and help shift the conversation back to sort of the center piece, not the individual cases or the individual things, but this larger context that all of this is happening in, which is an attempt to take us backwards.
Right. I think one of the most important things, just sort of at a foundational level, is to remember it is a conversation. I think there's often this idea that the court says something and that's it. That's the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
Like whatever the court declares goes. Or maybe sometimes the federal government more largely, if not just the Supreme Court. But that's demonstrably not the case. We've seen throughout history, time and time again, where people asserted a different understanding of law and made it unsustainable for the government to have a different one. They had to basically ratify the public understanding of what the law was. So I think that it is so important for people to remember that they too are entitled to think about what the law means, and to assert their own understanding of saying, like, actually, I think the 14th Amendment does protect all of us, or like, obviously, the 14th Amendment commands birthright citizenship, and you can't just like override that with the executive order. I think that I think part of this is just talking about it, which seems kind of silly, I think, on one hand. Like, it might be like, we're just saying words. But also, laws are just words on paper until people act on them. So I think, like, it is actually, we have to get people to agree on, like, a common understanding of what the law means. And so if enough people put up a big enough fuss, you can change what the common understanding is.
I think that's right. I think just having the conversation, which is why I keep asking you to come back and talk about it, because I feel like it's important, because I think that there's a when we think about for Black communities in particular, right? When we think about the Reconstruction laws, the laws that bestowed citizenship, that ensured our equal protection under the law, right? That assured due process, gave us voting rights, at least for Black men, in the 15th, and then obviously evolved over time. I mean, all of those things. Anytime, it feels like to me that anytime that there is an effort to do anything to any of those laws, that is a thing that we need to pay attention to, that we need to have conversation, or to those amendments, that we need to pay attention to, that we need to have conversations about, and that we need to try and understand, right? And part of the understanding, I think, comes from what you just said, was just talking about it, right? Just having the conversations about what it means, because those were the amendments that were the first effort to make America the America that it prescribed, or that it presented itself, right, right, or it wanted to present itself as. And those amendments helped to bring that more into existence than obviously anything prior to that. Right.
Like, it was, everything before it was basically just sort of pretending at democracy. It was play acting at democracy. But the Reconstruction amendments were transformative and are changing understandings of them over time to become more inclusive and like protect people across like other axes of discrimination as well, like not solely Black men, as you mentioned, has been really transformative and important as well, and sort of like changing how we understand like what that amendment means and like how it should be applied.
Yeah. And are there other things as we, head into this new season of America, and look toward what the Supreme Court is going to be taking up? Are there things that folks should be paying attention to that also fall into this realm of continuing to erode and undermine the 14th Amendment? Well, let me start there. I think my second question is sort of a follow-up, but what should folks be paying attention to that might be on the horizon, that they can start to not just pay attention to, but maybe do a little bit more education and research on themselves?
Sure. Well, I think this is it's an interesting question. I think I might have had a different answer depending on how January 20th was going to go.
Right.
Because my instinct is to say sort of be on the lookout for states' rights conversations.
Thank you.
Because the 14th Amendment, part of the Reconstruction Amendments was empowering the federal government to maintain a basic amount of rights for everyone. And so I was thinking, we should be cautious of states being actually, state rights are more important here than the federal government protecting people's right to be equal. But since we're not going to have a federal government that's really interested in protecting those rights. So I guess we need to look for a retreat that the federal government might have from some of its obligations. And seeing the sort of shifting priorities and for people to be insisting instead, obviously with varying degrees of success because the administration, its goals are its goals. But saying this is what the government should be doing. This is what its actual constitutional obligations are. Here are the things that we are legally entitled to. And I think this sort of brings us back to what regular people can do as well. Because I would love to see, this is my sort of a hope that I have, is that when people organize in their communities and do their own sort of local activism about issues in their lives, that they also invoke the Constitution when they do so. To say that this isn't just something I want, this is something that I have a constitutional right to.
I think that's perfect. I think that's perfect. And I appreciate you bringing up the states' rights conversation, because I think that is where we're headed, where everything is going back to the states, or at least that's what this incoming administration is saying, which means that we lose the sort of federal oversight and provision of some baseline rights to everyone. So, Madiba, I want to thank you one more time for joining us and helping us break this down. It's very complicated. I will absolutely have you come back on as we start to see some of these states' rights conversations move forward. But I appreciate you joining me and helping me understand this, and the listeners as well. And thank everyone else for joining me. Again, Happy New Year. We are excited to get into this new year here with the Black Pack. We'll be back next Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on KBLA 1580. Enjoy your weekend.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know from BIN News. Jay-Z's legal team is arguing the allegations against him are beyond the statute. They're optimistic about President-elect Trump's ability to control immigration. A Gallup poll showed that more than 2 in 3 Americans believe Trump will be able to curb illegal immigration. And Jimmy Carter's family is expressing their